Hi there again, and welcome back to our Grade 12 Life Sciences Cap series. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I hope this will be as simple as possible. So, as you can see from the whiteboard, today we'll be focusing and covering the human reproduction topic, discussing the male reproductive system and also the female reproductive system, breaking down all the structures that you have to know and also their functions as well. We'll also take a look at the structure of the sperm cell and of the egg cell as well, okay, and discuss gametogenesis, which is really the formation of gametes by meiosis. So this topic was requested in one of the videos that we posted, and I thought because it was a really simple topic that I should quickly cover it. And so this is to say, guys, if you want us to discuss or explain or break down a particular topic, you can write down a comment in one of the videos that we have done, or you can email me in the email that I've placed there in the description box. And for those of you who are new to this channel, I'd like to welcome you. I'm Andrew Ngomanda, and I break down concepts of the CAPS curriculum, and I hope this will be your home of learning. If you haven't accessed the past videos that we've done, please check them out in the playlist section of this channel. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. So reproduction in humans is really quite fascinating, and these two systems are very important for our reproduction as humans. So in order to reproduce, you need gametes. Okay, so we talked about gametes in the meiosis video, where we said that a diploid somatic cell undergoes two meiotic division to produce four unique different haploid sex cells. Okay, so we talked about that. And we said that these occur in the sex organs, okay, which is testes for males and ovaries for females. And so this is the first step to reproduction, the production of gametes or sex cells. Okay. Another vital process that we also talked about in the reproductive strategies video, which is the previous video, is fertilization. Okay. So you need fertilization to occur in order to reproduce, right? And so we're saying that the first step is the production of these gametes. And the second thing is fertilization, which is the fusion of the nuclei of the sperm cell and egg cell. Okay, so this is where you have that sperm cell's nucleus, okay, which is found in the head, fusing up with the egg cell's nucleus. Okay, so these two fuse together. Okay, so the sperm cell's nucleus has to enter through to the egg cell, and their nuclei fuse together to form a zygote. Okay, form a zygote, and a zygote looks like that. There we go. So this is to indicate that both of these nuclei, one from the egg cell and another from the sperm cell, have fused together, right? So this is what we call a zygote. Now in the meiosis video, we said that gametes, so these two are what we call gametes. So that's a scientific word really for sex cells, or the cells that are used for reproduction. So these are special cells really, which are produced again in sex organs. We said that these are haploid. Okay, so in humans, we mean that each nucleus of these two has half the number of chromosomes that you will find in a somatic cell, which is the body cell, right? So we produce these from body cells, guys. That would mean each gamete has 23 chromosomes. 23 chromosomes and another 23 chromosomes from the egg cell's nucleus. That makes up a total of 46 chromosomes, okay, in the zygote. Okay, and so that means the zygote is diploid. Okay, whereas these two are haploid. And so the zygote further multiplies. Okay, so it will multiply by mitosis. Okay, remember mitosis, guys, this is a cell division whereby a diploid cell divides to form two identical diploid cells still. Okay, identical cells. And we even made an example of an injury. So when you have an injury, okay, so let's say that is your hand and you get injured, okay, so you get a cut there. Okay, so this means that cells along this particular cut are damaged, and so your body makes more cells via mitosis. So it multiplies. So each cell divides to form two more identical cells such that the damaged cells are replaced. That is exactly what happens here. This zygote will further develop by mitosis and it will form a ball of cells. Okay, so a ball of cells, a structure which is called a morula. Okay, we'll talk about this in the next video when we are breaking down menstrual cycle. And then the morula further divides as well to form a hollow ball of cells. Okay, so it's very important that you are able to differentiate, okay, between a morula and the structure right here. Okay, so this structure has a hole. Okay, so it's called a hollow ball of cells. The morula is just called a ball of cells, whereas this is a hollow ball of cells, okay, which is formed after further division, further cell division. And so it will have a couple of cells, okay, right within this hole, okay, and then it will have that hole there. So it's this structure that will then develop to form extra embryonic membranes that we will discuss and the embryo, okay. And so this structure is what we call the blastocyst, okay. It's called the blastocyst or the blastula. Okay, so this is the structure that implants, but we will talk about everything else during the next video. Okay, so this is the idea, guys. Okay, so this will then further develop into an embryo and then a fetus, and then after 9 months, that will be a baby, right? Let's head on then and discuss these reproductive strategies which are responsible for producing these gametes, okay, which is the first step there, right? So we'll start with the male reproductive system and then head on to the female reproductive system. So what's important here is that you have to follow the path of the sperm cells, okay, until they exit the male's body, right? So you start where they form and then you end where they exit the male's body. And so that means that we will study all the structures that it will pass along, the structures that will help equip the sperm cells with everything that it needs. So the idea is, okay, you produce sperm cells, okay, as a male, and these sperm cells have to move through the vagina, okay, via the cervix, okay, into the uterus, and then they move into the fallopian tube, right? So this is where they will meet that egg cell, and this is where fertilization will occur, which is the fusion of the nucleus of the sperm cell that has traveled this long way and the nucleus of the egg cell, okay, that will be produced by the ovary there, okay? And so you have to understand that a sperm cell has a long journey to travel to reach the fallopian tube, and so it must be equipped. And so you have to know all the structures that are responsible for equipping it with everything that it requires in order to make that journey possible. So let's start off with the sac that encompasses the testes, okay? So males have a sac, okay, a bag-like structure, okay, which is called a scrotum. So this structure holds the testes, okay? Remember, the testes is where the production of sperm cells occur. And so you have this sac that holds these testes, okay? So what is the function of the scrotum? Okay, so the scrotum really does a job of regulation, temperature regulation, okay? So it regulates the temperature of the testes to 2 degrees Celsius below body temperature. Okay, so the normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, and so the scrotum has to ensure that the testes are 2 degrees below the body temperature. Okay, and so how do they do that? And this could be a 4 marks question, guys, and it's very simple. So one thing we also have to know is that the scrotum is a flexible structure, right? So it can shrink, okay, it can relax or hang, and that is all to regulate the temperature of the testes, okay? And why does it regulate the temperature of the testes? Well, sperm cells require a certain temperature in order for them to be healthy. And so the incorrect temperature of the testes can affect the fertility of the male if it is not regulated by this scrotum, okay? So what does this structure do to regulate the temperature? Okay, so when it is a cold day, the scrotum contracts. Okay, so it shrinks. Okay, so it gets smaller and smaller. Okay, so this is to move the testes towards. This is to move the testes towards the body so that it gets warm, right? And hence this prevents the testes from being very cold. So we're saying that when it is cold, the scrotum shrinks or contracts to get testes towards the body so that it increases the temperature of testes, right? And then when it is hot, okay, the scrotum relaxes, okay, it hangs, okay, so that it moves the testes away from the warm body. Okay, remember, when it is warm, your body will be warm as well. And so the scrotum cools down the testes by moving away the testes from the warm body, right? And so thus this cools down the testes. Okay, so this is critical, guys, when you are explaining the role that the scrotum has in regulating the temperature of the testes. Okay, and so let's head on to the production factory, which is the testes. Okay, so this is the testes, and their primary function really is to produce sperm cells, okay, via spermatogenesis. We'll talk about spermatogenesis. It's really the production of sperm cells by meiosis. So that is the function of testes, is to produce sperm cells via spermatogenesis. And it also produces a hormone, okay, which is responsible for the development of secondary characteristics, which is testosterone. Okay, so the testes does not only produce sperm cells, but it also produces or secretes testosterone, which stimulates the maturation of sperm cells and also initiates the development of secondary characteristics. So like your beard growing, your voice being deep. Now the testes produce sperm cells, but they produce immature sperm cells. Okay, so the sperm cells that are produced in the testes are not matured yet. And so that's what we see here. We see sperm cells being produced, okay, but they have not reached maturation yet. Okay, so they are produced and then they are stored in the epididymis. This is the third structure, right? So this is the structure that is blue here. Okay, so that is the epididymis. It's exactly on top of the testes. Okay, that's what we call the epididymis. So the epididymis really stores these immature sperm cells until they are mature. So that is that is its function. So it stores sperm cells until they reach maturation. Okay, so that is the function of the epididymis. So once they have reached maturation, now they can exit the epididymis via a tube here. So the yellow tube, and this is the tube or the duct, which we call the sperm duct. Okay, so the sperm duct is also called a vas deferens. Okay, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's really a tube that connects the epididymis to the urethra. Okay, so urethra is the tube that moves sperm cells out of the body. Okay, so if we would follow this path, you would find out that the sperm duct actually connects, okay, the epididymis to this urethra. Okay, there we go. Okay, so connects those two. That is its primary function, right? So now, so along this path, the sperm cells come in contact with three accessory glands. Okay, and these are very important. Okay, I need you guys to ensure that you can identify these and that you can differentiate them from each other. Okay, so there are three accessory glands that help the sperm cells, that equip the sperm cells with everything they need in order to make that journey possible. Okay, and that is the seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and Cowper's gland. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is the seminal vesicle. So how do you identify a seminal vesicle? First of all, a seminal vesicle looks like a leaf, right, or a tree or something. Okay, but it is an elongated structure. So you have to know that, because it may look different in different diagrams, but it will always be elongated like that. Okay, and so let me highlight it. So this is that, okay, seminal vesicle. Okay, it's this structure right here. Okay, so this is the first gland that sperm cells come in contact with, and its function is to provide sperm cells with nutrition, or a very nutrient-rich fluid, which will give them energy to move. Okay, right? So these three accessory glands produce the fluids that form the semen, right? Remember, sperm cells are microscopic, and so what you see really is semen, okay, which is really a mixture of fluids that are produced by these three accessory glands, right? And so we're saying that this seminal vesicle provides the sperm cells, okay, so as they are traveling, okay, along the sperm duct, and so as the sperm cells travel along the sperm duct, okay, the seminal vesicle provides them with a nutrient rich fluid which will give them energy to continue on moving. Okay, remember, the sperm cells, they have a long journey ahead. Okay, remember, they will go through the vagina, through the cervix, via the uterus to finally the fallopian tube. So that's a long way. And so they have to have huge amounts of energy. So that is the first accessory gland, guys, the seminal vesicle, and be able to identify it, please. The second type of gland that we have is called the prostate gland. So the prostate gland is usually a round structure. It can be oval, it can be round, and you can also spot it as the background gland. So it's usually in the background. Okay, so if you can look at this, you can clearly see that this is the prostate gland. Be able to identify it, guys. It's simply identifiable. Okay, so it is the round structure that is usually in the background. Okay, so that is what we call the prostate gland. Okay, make sure that you follow the path of the sperm cells. Okay, by following the path of the sperm cells, you can be able to identify all these structures. Okay, so the prostate gland's function really is to provide sperm cells with an alkaline fluid. Alkaline fluid. What is an alkaline fluid? Okay, so if you ever had a heartburn, guys, I don't know if you guys have ever had a heartburn, and what causes a heartburn is really high acid content. And so to counteract this, you consume a fluid that will neutralize this. So a fluid that is opposite to that, a fluid that is what we call alkaline fluids, counteract or they reduce the acidity. Okay, and so what acid are we referring to here? Well, so it turns out that the vagina has high acid content. And so that means that when the sperm cells are moving up the vagina, they are going to get killed because of this high acid content, guys. And so we need a fluid that will travel along with these sperm cells, okay, which is the fluid that is in the semen, which will counteract, okay, neutralize this acid that is in the vagina so that we prevent kills of the sperm cells. Okay, so that is the function of the prostate gland, really, is to provide a fluid that is alkaline such that it can neutralize the vagina acid, and thus protecting the sperm cells from dying and actually getting to do their job. Okay, so that is the second accessory gland, the prostate gland, guys. Okay, and then the third accessory gland, which is not annotated in this diagram, is the Cowper's gland. Okay, so the Cowper's gland is the smallest of them all. Okay, so you can easily identify it. So again, we follow the path of the sperm cells. So when they are matured, they move via the sperm duct or the vas deferens. Okay, they move, and the seminal vesicle provides them with the nutrient-rich fluid. The prostate gland provides them with the alkaline fluid, and then lastly, okay, right here, okay, so this is their third gland that provides them. So this is the structure. This is what we call the Cowper's gland. Okay, right here in red, right? Okay, so it's very small, guys, as you can see. Okay, it's smaller than the seminal vesicle, smaller than the prostate gland, but you can clearly see that here. Okay, so that is the Cowper's gland. Okay, so the Cowper's gland provides them with mucus. Okay, provides them with fluid, more fluid, which would push them to move even at a higher speed. Okay, and so that they can shoot up into the vagina through the different structures into all the way to the fallopian tube. Okay, so it really helps with the speed. Okay, the Cowper's gland helps with the speed. Okay, and so there you have it. So those are your three accessory glands. Seminal vesicle provides sperm cells with nutrient rich fluid to provide energy. Prostate gland provides sperm cells with alkaline fluid to neutralize the vagina acid, and Cowper's gland provides them with mucus that helps increase the sperm cells' speed. Okay, And so once they have been provided with those fluids, now they will move into this second type of duct or second type of tube, which we call the urethra. Okay, so the urethra is the tube that you will find in the penis. And this actually takes out semen and urine out of the body, right? So that is its function really. The urethra transports urine and semen out of the body. Okay. And so that is really the main role of the reproductive system, is to produce sperm cells and equip them, okay, as we discussed. Okay, and so let's take a look at this sperm cell, guys. How does the sperm cell look like? So this is what it looks like. So it really has different sections. It has three sections. It has the head. So this is the head, okay, as we can see. So the head is made up of the nucleus. Okay, the nucleus, we said how many chromosomes are you going to find in the nucleus? You're going to find 23 chromosomes, right? This is the structure that needs to get into the egg cell's wall. Okay, so and in order to do that, it has to consume. Okay, it has to eat out the wall of the egg cell. Okay, so the wall of the egg cell has to be consumed first. Okay, so that this part can enter internally into the egg cell, right? And so in order to do that, you have to have a structure that produces enzymes that digest these walls, and that structure is the acrosome. So the acrosome is found in the head of the sperm cell, and it really contains enzymes that digest the egg cell wall, or the layer of jelly. Okay, we'll talk about the layer of jelly, or the jelly layer, okay, of the egg cell. Okay, so we're saying that this acrosome consumes the wall so that the nucleus of the sperm cell can get through inside the egg cell, right? So that is the function really there. And here's another part, here's another section of the sperm cell, which is the mid piece, okay, so also called the neck. So the neck contains mitochondrion, and mitochondrion, as we know, guys, this structure provides energy, okay, so it provides the sperm cells with energy so that they can travel all that distance to where they are required. And then the last section is the tail. So the tail helps them propel, okay, so it helps them swim. Okay, so it propels the sperm cell. Okay, allows them to swim, to move. Okay, so this is for movement. It helps with movement, right? Okay, so that's really pretty much it, guys, when it comes to the structure of the sperm cell. Okay, now let's take a look at the female reproductive system, right? Okay, so before we do that, actually, let's take a look at the structure of the egg cell. Okay, so here's that jelly layer, guys, that we talked about. Okay, this is the jelly layer right there. Okay, this is the yolk membrane. So really, you have this jelly layer that will be consumed by those enzymes, so that the nucleus of the sperm cell is able to get through inside. Okay, inside you have the nucleus. Okay, and of course, this is the cytoplasm. The nucleus of the sperm cell has to fuse with the nucleus of the egg cell, and then you form what? The zygote, right? And then fertilization is occurred. So it's as simple as that, really. So the female reproductive system has really two functions. Okay, so it has to produce gametes, so it has to produce egg cells. Okay, and we said that the structure that produces egg cells, guys, in the meiosis video, we said that is the ovary. Okay, so these are your ovaries. Here you have an ovary, the right head. So there's an ovary there. There's another ovary. So their function really is to produce egg cells and hormones as well. Okay, so ovaries do not only produce egg cells, but they also produce hormones, which are the estrogen and progesterone. Okay, estrogen produced by follicles, progesterone produced by the corpus luteum. But we'll get into that in the next video, which is the menstrual cycle video. Right, so that's what we see in the ovary, which is the production of egg cells, the egg cell that will travel, okay, and wait in the fallopian tube, wait for the sperm cell, which will travel all that way, okay, to fertilize it there in the fallopian tube. And so this means that the fallopian tube's job, okay, really is that it is the place where fertilization occurs. Okay, so that is the function of the fallopian tube. It is the site of fertilization, right? So this is where the nucleus of the sperm cell and the nucleus of the egg cell fuse together, right, and form this zygote here in the fallopian tube. So after fertilization occurs, that zygote will then move down the fallopian tube towards this endometrium here. So as it moves down, it develops, as we said, from a zygote to a morula to a blastocyst, and then it will implant there in the endometrium, okay, as a blastocyst. Right, so let's take a look at other structures then. So we have the vagina, right? So the vagina is simply receives the penis and semen during the copulation. So copulation, really a fancy word for sexual intercourse. So it receives that semen, which includes sperm cells, and that is its function. And another function really is that it is the canal, okay? It is the path through which the baby is born, okay? So baby will be born through the vagina, okay? So that's what we mean by a canal through which the baby exits, okay? This should be exits, should have been exits, okay? So it's a canal through which the baby exits during birth, okay? Okay, and we have this narrow part, okay, of the vagina, as you can see here. So this narrow part here is what we call the cervix. So the cervix, its function is to stretch so that it allows the baby through during birth. So the baby is carried here in this structure, which we call the uterus, right here. Okay, sometimes the uterus, guys, they can point, so the arrow could be here. Okay, so they can point the arrow here, but that this is still a uterus, guys. All of this is all the uterus. This is the uterus, right? So if you have an arrow or pointing here or pointing here or here or here, that is the uterus, right? Okay, so the uterus' job is to carry the embryo and fetus during gestation. Okay, so gestation is a fancy word for pregnancy. Okay, the period of 40 weeks, right? And so we're saying that the uterus, okay, which is what they call a womb, this is the structure that carries the embryo and fetus. Okay, so embryo, this is the term that we use for the developing baby during the early stages. Okay, and then fetus is the word that we use for the developing baby during after 2 months. Okay, so after 2 months it becomes a fetus, right? And so this uterus has a lining. Okay, so it has this lining, and I hope you can see this. So here's this lining here. Okay, so this lining right here, I hope you can really see that. Okay, so that lining there is what we call the endometrium. Okay, so endometrium, this is the lining of the uterus. So sometimes they call it the uterine lining. So that is the endometrium. So it's the inner lining of the uterus. It is the place where the embryo implants, okay, rather the blastocyst implants, and it is the place where the placenta forms. We'll talk about the placenta, which is a structure really that connects the mother and the developing fetus. And this is what we talk about frequently in the menstrual cycle, the endometrium. It gets thicker and thicker during the menstrual cycle, and if fertilization does not occur, it breaks off. Okay, so it breaks apart, it disintegrates, and so during menstruation, this is really what female get out of their body, which is the endometrium. Okay, so this is what goes out. Okay, and so those are the two reproductive systems that enable for reproduction to occur in the human race, right? Now let's talk about the formation of these gametes. Okay, so gametes are formed, and we use different terms, okay, for different formations of gametes. Okay, so gametogenesis is really the generic term, okay, for production of gametes or production of sex cells. And as we said, guys, gametes are your sperm cells and egg cells. So gametogenesis is the formation of gametes by meiosis. By meiosis. Okay, we talked about this. We said that for females it occurs in ovaries, for males it occurs in testes. Okay, we form gametes, right? So male gametes are formed by spermatogenesis, and female gametes are formed by oogenesis. Okay, some call it oogenesis, some say oogenesis. It really doesn't matter, but these are different words for different types of gamete formations. So for the spermatogenesis, we are forming sperm cells. For the oogenesis, we are forming egg cells. Simple as that. Okay. So for the spermatogenesis, really, you have diploid cells that are in the testes. So in the testes, you have structures that we call seminiferous cubules. So seminiferous cubules have cells which are diploid, so they have diploid cells, the somatic cells. So the somatic cells undergo meiosis, okay, the two meiotic divisions, okay, under the influence of the hormone testosterone. So testosterone plays a huge role in the production of sperm cells, okay. So they undergo meiosis under the influence of testosterone to form haploid sperm cells. And so that is how we produce sperm cells. So this is really a simpler version of the description of spermatogenesis. I think I will look for another version, a much detailed version of spermatogenesis, really, in the next videos. Okay, and then oogenesis, I think, is better detailed. Oogenesis, here you have diploid cells in the ovary, which undergo mitosis. Okay, they first undergo mitosis to form follicles first. Okay, so you have cells in the ovary which will multiply. Okay, so they will multiply, they will divide, I mean, and hence they will form cells that are identical to them. Okay, and this occurs under the influence of a hormone that we call a follicle stimulating hormone, which is produced by the pituitary gland. So the follicle stimulating hormone influences this mitosis, okay, meaning that it initiates the production of follicles. So follicles are these structures inside which you have egg cells growing, okay, or maturing, okay. And so we're saying that these follicles are formed by the mitosis of diploid cells in the ovary, okay, under the influence of the FSH, which is the hormone, right? Now, one cell inside the follicles enlarges, okay, so there are multiple cells, but only one cell will enlarge, okay, and of the four cells that are produced, only one cell survives to form a mature haploid ovum. Okay, so of the four cells that are formed inside, only one cell will exit. Okay, so only one cell will be produced there, or will burst out, of the ovary and wait and travel to the fallopian tube to wait for the sperm cell, right? Okay, so that is oogenesis. That is a much detailed that is a much detailed gametogenesis. Okay, so again, I'll look for a better version of the spermatogenesis. Okay, so I did not bring along activities here with me, and so we'll have that as revision. So it's quite important that you practice, guys. Practice makes perfect. Okay, so this is all I have for today's video, and I really hope I made it simple enough for you. So please practice, and please share this channel to others, share it to your friends, to your family, because this can go a long way, guys, to actually impact someone's life out there. So please, let's share this, let's subscribe, let's invite more people to become part of this channel. Okay, so that's all for today. I'll see you in the next video.